everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Excited to be here.
Today, we're tackling a topic that seems to be really important to you, our listener, and that is the often tricky intersection of autism and rejection sensitive dysphoria.
RSD for sure.
Yeah, RSD. You've sent us, wow, just a ton of really interesting stuff, articles, excerpts from websites, all kinds of things.
Yeah, a really great collection.
So clearly this is something you've been thinking about and researching quite a bit.
Excellent.
So we're going to try to unpack all of this and synthesize it for you. Hopefully you'll come away from this deep dive understanding not just what RSD is,
Right.
but also the unique challenges it presents for autistic individuals,
Yeah.
and maybe even more importantly, some practical strategies for navigating RSD in your everyday life.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
It's fascinating because RSD, while it can affect anyone, it really often hits those on the autism spectrum particularly hard. It's like this incredibly intense emotional reaction
Oh, yeah.
to even like the smallest hint of rejection or criticism
Oh, wow.
or just feeling left out.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes way beyond just feeling sad, you know?
Yeah.
It can manifest as serious emotional pain, anxiety, even physical symptoms.
Like what?
Headaches, stomach ache.
Oh, wow.
It's really powerful.
It sounds almost like experiencing that emotional pain as physical pain.
Yeah, it's that intense.
Yeah, and you know, we know from your deep dive requests that you're looking for specific insights into how being autistic can make those RSD experiences even more difficult.
Exactly. And there are definitely some key areas where those two things kind of come together and make things really tough.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones is social misunderstandings.
Oh, I can see that.
You know, imagine trying to interpret sarcasm or humor.
Right.
For many autistic individuals, those nuances can be incredibly challenging.
Oh, for sure.
And that difficulty can easily trigger those intense RSD fears.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you misinterpret a neutral facial expression as disapproval, and bam, that feeling of rejection hits you like a ton of bricks.
Right. And it's not just facial expressions either.
No, not at all.
There's a whole universe of social cues out there
A whole universe.
that can be super difficult to decipher.
Absolutely.
It's almost like there's this constant underlying worry
Yeah.
about saying or doing the wrong thing, even when you have the best intentions.
Even when you don't mean it.
Yeah.
It can be a really pervasive feeling.
Yeah, I bet.
And exhausting.
I can only imagine.
And then on top of that, to make things even more complex, you've got sensory sensitivities.
Oh, right.
So for some autistic individuals, things like loud noises, bright lights, certain textures even, can be completely overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure.
So now imagine you're at a party,
Okay.
the music's blasting, lights are flashing, everyone's talking over each other.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of sensory overload can make it almost impossible to even process social cues.
Right.
You're already on edge, and then the slightest hint of rejection can just send you spiraling.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good example.
It can be a lot.
It really helps to understand how all that sensory input just amplifies those feelings of rejection.
It definitely plays a big role.
And then, of course, we can't forget about emotional regulation, can we?
Absolutely not. That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Difficulty managing strong emotions is another really common challenge for people on the spectrum.
Right.
And it makes coping with the intensity of RSD just so much harder.
So what's that like?
Imagine trying to contain a wildfire with a garden hose.
Oh, wow.
It's just not a fair fight.
No, not at all.
And that's kind of what it feels like sometimes.
So it sounds like understanding all of these underlying factors,
Hmm.
the social piece, the sensory piece, and then the emotional piece,
Exactly.
it's absolutely crucial for being able to develop effective coping strategies, right?
It all works together.
So let's dive into those strategies because I know that's a big part of what you're hoping to get out of this deep dive.
Let's do it. And it's important to remember, you know,
Yeah.
this isn't about changing who you are. It's about like giving you the tools
Yeah.
and the understanding
Mm-hmm.
to kind of navigate a world that isn't always built with neurodiversity in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about working with what you've got.
Okay, so where do we even begin with that?
Hmm.
What are some like practical steps
Yeah.
that someone can take to start managing RSD in their own life?
Well, I think a really fantastic starting point is self-awareness.
Okay.
One of the most powerful things you can do is really understand like what your own personal triggers are.
What do you mean by triggers?
Like the specific situations or conversations
Yeah.
or even like tones of voice that tend to set off your RSD.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's about becoming an emotional detective.
I like that.
And journaling can be so helpful for this.
How so?
Well, by tracking your emotional responses over time, you might start to notice patterns
Okay.
and identify those triggers more clearly.
So it's about like becoming aware of those situations that lead to those really intense emotional reactions.
Exactly.
And then using that knowledge to prepare yourself, I guess.
Exactly.
You got it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And another powerful tool is social support.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Having people in your life who truly understand your experience with RSD,
Hmm.
that can make a world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are the people you can talk to openly and honestly without fear of judgment.
Right.
It could be a close friend, a family member, a therapist,
Yeah.
even an online support group.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Finding those individuals who really get it
Yeah.
can provide such a sense of safety and validation,
Hmm.
and that can significantly reduce anxiety.
It's like building your own personal support system,
Exactly.
filled with people who understand the unique challenges of RSD.
Absolutely.
It can be so powerful to know that you're not alone in this.
You are definitely not alone.
And then there are those sensory accommodations we talked about earlier.
Oh, absolutely. Don't underestimate those.
What do you mean? Like minimizing sensory overload, especially in situations that, might be potential RSD triggers.
Okay.
Think about things like earplugs,
Yeah.
noise-canceling headphones, or even just having a quiet space to retreat to when things feel overwhelming.
Yeah, that's important.
Those tools can help regulate that sensory input
Mm-hmm.
and reduce overall anxiety,
Right.
which can then help with managing those intense emotions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
This is all connected.
If you're already feeling on edge, the last thing you need is a bunch of extra sensory information bombarding your system.
Exactly.
Creating a calmer environment, it just helps you stay grounded.
Absolutely. And then there are also cognitive behavioral techniques.
Oh, right, CBT.
CBT, yeah.
Yeah.
And these can be really effective in helping people reframe negative thoughts
Okay.
and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
Like what?
Well, for example, instead of instantly jumping to the worst case scenario,
Which is?
like they hate me,
Oh,
you can practice challenging that thought and replacing it with a more balanced one.
give me an example.
Like maybe they're just having a bad day.
Oh, okay, that's good.
This is called cognitive restructuring.
Cognitive restructuring.
And it's all about learning to recognize and challenge those automatic negative thoughts.
So it's like hitting the pause button on that negative thought spiral
Yes.
and giving yourself a moment to consider other possible explanations.
Exactly. You're getting it.
Okay.
And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes to break free from those destructive patterns.
So like building a new habit, a new way of thinking.
Exactly. It's like training your brain.
Interesting.
Another CBT technique is exposure therapy.
What's that?
That involves gradually exposing yourself to situations that trigger your RSD,
Okay.
but in a controlled and safe environment.
So like baby steps.
Kind of, yeah. And this can help you build tolerance and reduce anxiety over time.
So it's like facing your fears, but in a way that feels manageable.
Exactly.
I like that. It's about taking control.
It sounds like we're really shifting gears here.
In what way?
From, understanding RSD
Yeah.
to actually taking action and using that knowledge to empower ourselves.
Love that.
It's not just about knowing what it is, it's about using that knowledge to develop practical coping strategies.
Couldn't agree more.
And something that really stood out to me in the materials you sent over
What's that?
was this idea of not just surviving RSD, but actually thriving.
Oh, I love that you brought that up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a crucial part of this whole conversation.
Yeah.
Thriving with autism and RSD means focusing on your strengths, pursuing your passions,
Okay.
and building a life that genuinely brings you joy and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
RSD is a part of the journey,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to define the whole journey.
It's about reclaiming your narrative.
Yes.
And defining your own path. And part of that, I imagine, involves self-compassion, right?
Yeah.
Like giving ourselves permission to have those tough days without judgment.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It's okay to have bad days.
Yeah.
It's okay to struggle. Be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
Acknowledge your efforts.
Okay.
And celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem.
It's like giving yourself permission to be human,
Exactly.
to experience that full spectrum of emotions without beating yourself up about it.
You got it.
And I think this is where the power of community comes in.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Like connecting with other autistic individuals who also experience RSD. It can be incredibly validating and empowering. It's like finding your tribe,
Exactly. People who just get it
Yeah.
and can offer support and understanding.
Well, I know we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We talked about what RSD is, how it uniquely shows up for autistic individuals.
Hmm.
And we even dove into some practical tips for managing it.
Yeah, hopefully some useful stuff in there.
But before we wrap up, are there any, final thoughts you want to leave our listener with?
It's been such a great conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm really glad we had the chance to unpack these concepts together.
Me too.
If there's one thing I hope you take away from this deep dive,
What's that?
it's that knowledge is power.
Oh, I like that.
The more you understand about RSD,
Yeah.
the better equipped you'll be to navigate its challenges and create a life that feels fulfilling
Yeah.
and authentic to you.
You've given our listener a lot to think about today.
Yeah, I hope so.
But remember, this is just the beginning of your journey.
That's right.
We've really only scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to explore.
So as you continue exploring this topic,
Yeah?
ask yourself what resonated with you the most?
Good question.
And what steps will you take to manage RSD in your own life?
That's the important part.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
Never forget that.
There's a whole community of people out there who understand. And there are so many resources available to help you thrive.
Absolutely. So keep learning, keep connecting, and keep believing in yourself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.